It's clear that the internet will be like oxygen, needed by everyone.
Yeah, that's all right. Just pump the internet directly into your brain. Perhaps you could fit some sort of cable right there into my pituitary gland. Perhaps my dreams could be sponsored by Facebook if you want. Why don't we just pass over our unconscious minds to these terrifying giants? Hello you, it's another great reset video in our series. At the World Economic Forum in Davos, Facebook CEO Sheryl Sandberg pledged that Facebook could control and benefit the developing digital world with free internet use via Facebook. But what are Facebook's intentions? Is Facebook's role in the developing digital world a positive one, or does it have potential negative side effects?
Sheryl Sandberg, COO of Facebook, member of the board, but also member of the board of a number of companies and institutions, including Walt Disney.
Also, though, CEO of several companies like Disney. Of course, you start to imagine how it all works. There's this collaboration between various powerful economic interests. It's weird. Even now, I feel like a twinge saying something negative about Disney because I sit consuming their content by the hour every day. And still, from my childhood, I'm trained to see that circular dot over the I and that rather curvaceous D as positive things. But Disney, like Facebook, are very, very powerful interests, and it doesn't take a great deal of exploration to discover things that are problematic, difficult, challenging, because the truth of the matter is you cannot accumulate wealth on that scale without deficit elsewhere. This is one of the things I learned from Vandana Shiva in our recent podcast. If you see mass wealth accumulation, there is a deficit. Of course, this is relevant even on a smaller scale with an ordinary privileged person like me and possibly like you. I've got a laptop, I've got access to all these things because these things are cheaply provided because the machinery of capitalism operates well in developing nations. So how can we believe Sheryl Sandberg when she says the intentions of Facebook in the digitally developing world are entirely positive? Let's see what she says.
Facebook as an organization, from a business model point of view, is really based on the amount of people that come together on your platform. So you must be extremely interested in getting the remaining 5 billion people online.
We are.
You bet we are. We've got to get those 5 billion people online. Over here, people are getting sick and tired of Facebook.
We have a project we call internet.org, which tries to provide free data in different places.
Facebook has been working to rapidly spread its influence to developing nations. First with its internet.org, renamed Free Basics. People don't like internet.org. Call it Free Basics. And more recently through its Discover app. Through cooperation with major mobile providers, Facebook gives owners of cheap smartphones who cannot afford internet data limited free connectivity so long as they use the Facebook app. Ostensibly, Facebook becomes the internet. It becomes your main interface, the same way as many of us have, like, I don't know, Google or DuckDuckGo or Safari or whatever as our cyber-facing portal to that world. Well, if Facebook have control of that, they're able to curate and control and obscure your reality. I'm sure many of you saw that film Social Dilemma, which talked about the Myanmar revolution and the sort of complications, not to mention in Western nations, the sense that increased polemicism is a result of the way that information is curated and presented. I liken it to this. Imagine your senses could be controlled by an external agent, that you were literally only able to look at certain pieces of information, like the spectrum of color was reduced or the range of sound that you were able to experience was limited. Your entire reality would be formulated on that basis. This is what we're discussing here, a second colonization where billions of people's experience of reality is controlled or obscured or presented through massive tech giants whose agenda and objectives we are at least beginning to question.
And what it does is it's an app that anyone can get that provides free Facebook, free Messenger. We've launched 4 apps, and in about an hour, we're launching our 5th in Ghana.
If I was in Ghana, I like to think that I would at this point say, any people that ain't from Ghana coming over here saying, we've got this thing, I'll go, we've had this. I remember this happened before. We've got, hey, hi, we're over here with this thing. Leave people alone. Let people have autonomy and freedom over their own life. Stop helping. Stop helping us. We've come to help you with this idea. We've come to help you with this Facebook. Stop helping. We've had enough of your help, thanks. Get your help off of me.
This isn't the whole answer, but it is a way of getting some people some data for free.
For Google and Facebook, the unconnected world and the 3.5 billion people in it represent a giant untapped revenue stream. In the past half decade, the two tech firms have been battling to connect users in the developing world and are doubling the number of people using their services, gaining precious new access to customers and their data too. Adam Curtis, who's been a guest on Under the Skin, always points out that in spite of the obvious technical ingenuity of these firms, they are primarily marketing firms. Their revenue comes from advertising. And if someone's revenue comes from advertising, they're an advertising company, in spite of all the other things they do. They gather data, they sell that data to advertisers, so the advertisers can be more effective. Now, I'm aware of the irony of me saying this while you have no doubt seen some kind of advert related to the sort of content you watch, and even related to watching this content, should it not have been deemed unsuitable for advertisements. But this is, again, I think it takes away somewhat from the kind of high-minded ideals that are being discussed at Davos to understand that, in effect, all that's happening is commercial activities that have as a side effect the numbing and dumbing down of new minds.
And we think that's really important, and there have to be a whole number of other things. But fundamentally, the economics have to change to get the rest of the people online.
We've got to get these products cheaper. We've got to get everybody online. The terrible thing about Davos and the World Economic Forum is its banality, is its apparent neutrality. It's all designed to look like some sort of tiresome quiz show. They're just sort of sat there next to their names discussing things that seem entirely reasonable. But as our conversation with Edward Snowden on Luminary revealed, this is the biggest conspiracy of all. The biggest conspiracies don't take place in hoods, in groves, with lizards. It happens here at Davos in plain sight, where people simply discuss, we've made this decision, we're moving in this direction, we'll have that government cooperation, this corporate alliance, this is how it's going to go down. That is conspiracy.
The technology industry is also one that's willing to try different approaches that don't work, but that fundamentally we will succeed and people's lives will be better. And I think we believe that, and that doesn't mean there aren't challenges.
I think we believe that. Hold on a minute. No, Cheryl, that's a lie. That's that thing you say at Davos, so that there's no opposition to this terrible colonization of the consciousness of people that are living simpler lives in far-flung lands. Don't say that at Davos. Shut up, brain.
And I think that's a really important point.
By me.
What is your vision for the future state of the digital economy? And are you, generally spoken, optimistic or pessimistic about that future, and why?
I want to answer the question with 3 stories.
Well, how about the good old-fashioned plain truth instead of 3 stories?
Last year I was in Korea. I met a woman named Kayang. She had saved up to go to law school, but then she took her law school tuition, dropped out of law school, and built an app which would enable you to find same-day hotel rates. And she now employed 8 people.
I mean, it's a bit patronising, isn't it? If you're the CEO of Facebook patting someone on the back from across the continents from Davos for setting up a business with 8 people. We're talking about hitherto unseen technical and financial power. And the truth is, and there are interesting historical comparisons available here, that Facebook's power and influence in the what you might refer to as the digitally developed world is waning. Therefore, it is necessary that developing digital markets such as Indonesia, Malaysia, the countries of Africa, India, these are fresh territories that need to be mined, used. You can't help but think of colonization, and even Christian missionaries. Once, like enough people in Europe and what is called the developed world had already made their mind up about Christianity one way or another, missions were sent out to convert more minds, to convert them. You can't escape, even in spite of Sheryl Sandberg's apparent personability and seems like a nice human being, the fact that humans in these digitally developing worlds are being regarded as a resource, customers, a product. How will this play out for them? How is it playing out for people in countries that have already experienced it?
And then just last month at Facebook, I met a woman who's become one of my heroes named Masi. And she started a Facebook page which now has...
Sorry, did I say cage there? It's almost like in my unconscious mind I was thinking of some sort of dreadful prison, some inescapable place that I'm webbed into, trapped into. That's strange. I didn't mean cage, I meant page. And this hero of mine that I met has had some trivial, insignificant gathering of information, popularity or opportunity in this vast, nebulous mass of power that I, like some wizard, am controlling.
Which now has 750,000 followers.
It is a common political device, isn't it, to use anecdotes to sort of personalise that which is by its nature impersonal because of its vastness. In fact, the other day, I was chatting to my good mate who's a plumber who was saying, Russell, I really like your videos. If I start doing that, I'm obviously trying to influence the way you see me. And what I hope we have through these videos and through this connection is a direct experience as much as possible using this tech for good, because I'm not suggesting that everybody who works at Facebook, you know, like you, is revealed when you watch those documentaries about the troubles that we're facing in these times. These are all ingenious, brilliant, intrepid people. It's only the mentality at the top that is problematic. And I know I've made a pyramid there. Don't freak out. I know I've got a 33 tattoo. It's about Jesus. Just don't panic. Focus on the real problems, like people amassing enormous amounts of power and meeting up in public at World Economic Forum to discuss how to further cement that power. Don't worry about that. I wouldn't have it if it meant anything or revealed anything.
I'm optimistic because these three stories happen in a world where only 40% of people have internet access. And if we can extend to more people, we increase voice. And importantly, it's not just them learning from us, it's us learning from them.
Do you think when you watch this, like maybe, like, she's a human being, same as you or me, so is it that she actually is thinking, no, look, the best thing to do out in the developing world is make sure they get Facebook. Are they not seeing these documentaries? Are they not watching this stuff? Like, no, come on, it will work. If we just get a few more people on Facebook, I'm sure the world's problems will resolve themselves. The trends are observable. Now, no one's questioning that the internet, Facebook, some of these brilliant, ingenious companies are revolutionary, radical, brilliant, in all of that stuff. But look at where it's going. There clearly needs to be radical change, and that change is not about increasing the power of the people that run these organisations. It's about decreasing it, regulating it, managing it, slow things down a bit. What do you need? More gadgets? You're not going to rest till there's a monkey with a microchip in its brain able to play tennis. I mean, what are you trying to get? We've been to the fucking moon. What's the point? What's the point? Unless you're going to start organising a fairer, better society that can be measured by metrics other than financial success, then what is it we're pursuing other than our own ultimate demise and the saturation of technologies and ideologies that are clearly having I would say, an aggregated negative effect?
We increase economic opportunity, and we're going to talk about job creation, and we increase equality.
Facebook is not introducing people to open internet where you can learn, create and build things, said Ellery Biddle, Advocacy Director of Global Voices. It's building this little web that turns the user into a mostly passive consumer of mostly Western corporate content. That's digital colonialism. It's interesting, isn't it, that whether you're talking to Vandana Shiva or some of these activists, the idea of colonialism comes up again and again. Colonialism, I suppose, means the capture of apparently neutral or new territories, which in fact are neither of those things. They're occupied spaces, occupied by people or occupied by values and principles, and metabolizing them into something that's useful for profit. What we are experiencing is new colonization, and like its predecessor, we, the indigenous markets, are already overwhelmed. We've already been captured. Now it's markets new that have to be conquered.
And so I'm a huge optimist, because if we can do all this with 40%, imagine what we can do when we get to 50, 60, 70, and hopefully everyone.
Bloody hell, Sheryl. I mean, it's weird because I sort of feel like if I met and spoke to Sheryl Sandberg, that I'd think she was a nice person. I sort of feel that because she seems sort of personable. But to hear her gently discussing 100% totalitarian saturation of the consciousness of every single individual on the planet is a little bit giddy, and I have the image of being sort of tacked down to the sand by Lilliputians, like having my eyes pushed open by matchsticks a la Kubrick's Clockwork Orange, and inundated with images until I see reality the way they want me to see reality, and any memory or suggestion of a reality that don't fit in with reality as they regard it is bleached out of my consciousness. I don't feel that the intentions of people here are ultimately anything other than economic, and if they are something other than economic, I don't think it's better than that. I think it's potentially worse than that, and to do with power and the removing the ability for autonomy at the level of the individual, say. So my thoughts here are, let's consider it. we, Jesus, get the fucking brakes on, is what I would say. Have some control here, some regulation. And in a way, who are you going to look to assert that control on your behalf? Because the agency of government is, it seems, when you witness these congressional hearings that seem to be always happening, you're always seeing Mark Zuckerberg, aren't you, sat in front of some laptop going, well, sir, actually, no, it wasn't our intention. Or sometimes you see, sure, it's not, that ain't going to be it, because ultimately, when it's crunch time, their interests align.
I remember the old internet joke where you had the dog in front of the computer. And it said, on the internet, no one knows you're a dog. And that was because the internet was anonymity. No one would put their real name or face on the internet. And that really changed. It changed with social networking. It changed with Facebook.
Some distance from anonymous now. We know everything about you. We know everything that you've looked at. We know everything you think, where you've been continually, even if you take every app off your phone. Anonymous is no longer an option. And here, note the pejorative implication of anonymity. Anonymity doesn't mean, oh, I'm skulking in the cyber bushes about to get up to some treachery. Anonymity means I'm private. I don't need to reveal to a corporate space that sees me as a consumer and potentially my attention as a product. I don't need to reveal to them who I am or what I'm doing. These things are tools. They need to be replaced, packaged, limited, prohibited, parametered as tools. The ideology must change. The ideology must become resourced from elsewhere. It must be not about the concentration of power, the harvesting of attention. It must become about the sharing of power. Now, they obviously don't need me to tell them that, because every one of their anecdotes is mobilized by that idea. Oh, look, it's democratizing power. Well, let's see that then. Stick to your guns. Live that way then. If this is what you think Facebook is, then you won't resist regulation that ensures that's how Facebook is, that ensures that it's local businesses that benefit, that ensures that huge corporations can't come together in alliance and collusion to collapse economies, to create power vacuums that can be flooded by pre-existing powerful corporate interests. They use those narratives and stories where convenient, but in practice, it's about the pursuit of profit.
And I think that's really important, because this is the historical shift from the historically powerful to the historically powerless, because everyone has voice. If you think back to before the technologies that everyone up here deploys and develops, if you wanted to reach the world and you were not someone who had access, what would you do? Pass out flyers? Now everyone can post, everyone can share.
That is an interesting explication of what is being rendered through this digital world. Just because something is potentially possible, that doesn't mean that it's actual. And the idea that anyone can post does not mean that we all have equal access. Facebook is a set of biases. That's what an algorithm is. It's not a neutral thing. It behaves in accordance with its programming. It behaves according to the intentions of the people that govern it. There is no autonomous Facebook. There is just the practices of the people that design it. I mean, see that free basic situation. A study found that each version of these might be moderately localized, perhaps superficially localized, offering a slightly different set of sites and services. Many of the services with the most prominent placement on the app's homepage are created by private US companies, regardless of the market. I'm not suggesting that this is actually how it went down, but it's possible to consider that perhaps relationships with American organizations that pay a lot of money for advertising in market A are advantaged when it comes to market B and C. And in fact, the business program of Facebook and the marketing plan for the future is set on increasing those relationships and their power, because it's ultimately a profit-driven organisation. I mean, it's just difficult to see where opposition is come from, but not impossible. That's why it's important that you watch things like my interview with Vandana Shiva, and if you can't watch the full thing, just watch the chat that's on here. Have a look, link in the description. You know, there are opposing voices and there is the potential for collective action. Edward Snowden also talked about that. Have a look at that if you want to. Both these links are in the description. So I'm not trying to bludgeon all hope out of you. I'm simply trying to discuss with you the scale and scope of the problem, which I know most of you know because I read the comments.
And that gives voice to people who historically have not had it, and I think represents something truly profound in the world.
So you're saying it will reduce the divide, not increase the divide?
I think it does. I mean, certainly there are a lot of divides which are increasing, but if you look at the power of technology, and particularly social technology, It gives people voice, more equal voice than we've had before, and we've seen those impacts on the world.
Well, you can look at that data, can't you? You can look at the trend. Is the trend towards equality or is the trend towards inequality? Look at the economics of a developed country like America and see what it is. Is there a concentration of wealth? Are there like 10, 15 families that have as much accumulative wealth as the bottom 50%? Is that true? Yes or no? You can look at it. We don't need to speculate. We see the results. The results are in. So you can't just keep doing it and hoping that at some point it's going to change, particularly not when you're taking it into markets that are even less regulated, where you don't even have the same facility for vocal opposition, where historically the predecessors of these big tech giants, i.e. energy companies, behave with such negligence and abandon in places like Ogoniland in Nigeria that to this day there are people in prison. To this day there are consequences of Shell Oil's conduct. So you can look at the precedents, you can look at the way it's behaved, and you can see where it's going, and you can see what the problems are, and you can sort of see what needs to change. Regulation. I see that this regulation won't happen as a result of government intervention because, we know which way the wind blows with those guys. So the only thing available to you is individual awakening, collective action.
Technology creates jobs, not just in the technological space, but in the non-tech world. So, when I was in India.
Oh, you're in India, were you? Did you meet anyone? Have you got any charming homespun anecdotes to bludgeon us with?
These two women are fashion students at the Bangalore Fashion Design. They started a company that makes hair accessories. They make hair accessories and sell them through Facebook.
Well, that's a nice hair clip. And also, I have all your data.
They employ 3 other women who were previously unemployed.
Yeah, that's the answer to the world's problem. 3 women in India getting a job. There's no other downside of this that we're not discussing, is there? Like, no, this is all fine. We've got these 3 women in India have got a job now making bows and hair clips and that. Don't worry about the fact that we're all getting drenched with corporate information from powerful Western elites. That'll be fine. Just pop a hair clip in from them women who've got a job now.
What is the problem that your company will work most on, and what do you need from someone else in order to accelerate us to that digital global future?
Inclusion.
We just need to enmesh the entire world in a terrifying invisible net that contains all of us. We just need to include you in this and then take all of your information and we'll be fine.
We need voices, technologists, entrepreneurs of all types to reflect the diversity that is the world.
Yeah, got to reflect the old diversity when you're dominating an entire planet. It's not gestures or anything like that. Don't be so cynical. That's true diversity, that. All diversity under the terrifying, smothering blanket of corporate power.
So that the voices can be heard, and I think we can create a more connected and a safer world.
I think those are the best words we could end this session.
Here's some alternatives though. Get out while you can of this terrifying new nightmare. For God's sake, come together in union to confront this terrifying threat. Do not let the people of Ghana and these as yet untainted nations experience the horror being calmly, quietly planned by these smiling and seemingly quite sweet cyber assassins. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please like, subscribe, pass it around, Christ, on Facebook even, and share it with one another. And also sign up to my mailing list. Go over at russellbrand.com should I ever be in a position where I lose the facility of these, ingenious people over at these tech giants who, let's face it, they do a lot of good work. Remember, it's just the ideology behind it that needs to change. The same as an axe. Use it to chop down a tree, or you could use it in less pleasant ways. It's just a tool. Thank you very much for watching. Stay close.